Okay, hello listeners, and welcome to our annual Album of the Year episode. We're going to talk about some of the best albums from 2019, well, supposedly some of the best albums from 2019 today. I'm Fran Slater, and I'm here with Matthew Paul. Hello, Matthew. How are you?
I'm good.
Very good, very good. And Nicholas Parker. How are you, Nicholas?
I'm doing extremely well. Thank you very much for asking.
Extremely well. I'm really pleased to hear that. Okay, so all three of us are shortly going to tell you our albums of the year. But as we do every year, we've also picked a few the other magazines and newspapers and whatever picked as their album of the year. So those are from Flood magazine, Weyes Blood with Titanic Rising. From Associated Press, there's Ari Lennox with Shea Butter Baby. From KCRW, there's Brittany Howard with a French word that I think is j'aime.
It's Jamie. It's the name Jamie.
Okay, Jamie. There you go. There's my French lesson for the day. From Billboard, there is Thank You Next by Ariana Grande. Piccadilly Records, which is a record store in Manchester, went with W.H. Lung's Incidental Music. And then the New York Times chose 1,000 Gecs by 100 Gecs, or 100 Gecs by 1,000 Gecs. Anyone know?
One of them, I'm not sure.
The band's called 100 Gecs.
Okay, there we go. And yeah, while I'm remembering, please also go and check us out on our website, pickybees.com, and yeah, we'll get going.
Yeah.
So, we're going to do this in a bit of a round robin, a few questions, which we'll each get a minute and a half to answer. And the simple question to start with is, what was your favourite album of 2019? And I'm going to go to Nick to start with. Go, Nick, minute and a half now.
Okay, my time has started. I'm going to go with Clipping, There Existed an Addiction to Blood, which is, to be honest, the most unusual album I have heard in a very, very long time. It is full of extremely odd shapes of sounds, built in really random ways. It is. There's nothing else you'll hear like it this year. It lyrically dances circles around everything else I've heard this year. It is the flow is also unparalleled in how fast and tight it is. Its beats are really exciting and also really odd and out of place in certain points. It's not always even, I'll definitely concede. There's certainly some parts that are really hard to hear, lots of parts that are very hard to hear. But the highs are so high that it's really carries itself as the best album for me. All in Your Head and La Mala Ordina might be the best two songs of the year, both. And they're both on the same album. So, yeah, I've got lots and lots of lyrics I'd like to recite, but I've only got 90 seconds, so I'll probably leave it at that. Clipping. Fantastic.
You could fit in a couple of lyrics.
No, I've got like pages of them, so I'll never get them in time. If I start now, I'll never get to the end.
Okay. So Clipping, There Existed an Addiction to Blood. Okay, Matthew, what was your album of the year? Go.
My album of the year was Billie Eilish's album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? And what really struck me about this album is it's very much a pop product, but at the same time it's incredibly genuine and authentic. I think pop music is very much having a bit of a heyday at the moment, but this album managed to create this very diverse range of songs that was all very personal, but also very relatable at the same time. And getting all of these things tied up in this neat album, I think really it kind of adds to this big appeal of the album. It means you can have these soaring pop moments, but really it strikes you hard at the same time. Some of it can be totally badass, some of it's totally heart-wrenching, it's never bland. And unsurprisingly, it seems to me that a lot of the production is influenced by one of my favorite artists of the decade, Bon Iver, and so I can see a lot of that in this album as well.
Interesting.
So if you see like this song, When the Party's Over, to me that just sounds like Creeks. And so someone who's influenced by the album of the decade, for me, it's unsurprising. I think it's one of the albums of the year.
Wow.
Nice.
Interesting.
Smooth as well. Smooth delivery there, Matt. Very nice.
You had 2 seconds left then. I've not got to use my alarm yet, which is upsetting me. I would like to use my alarm soon, please, but one of you needs to time me.
Okay, I've got you.
I'm going to time you because I can't work out to operate a timer. So.
Ready, Fran?
I'm ready, mate.
Go.
So yeah, 2019 has been my favourite year for music in a really long time. There were loads of albums on my shortlist for deciding the album of the year. Aldous Harding, Big Thief, The National, The Twilight Sad and Little Sims, to name but a few. But in the end, I had to go with an album that's been an absolutely huge part of my year and one that totally took me by surprise. And that album was Compliments Please by Self-Esteem. So for me, often the albums that speak to me the most in a year are the ones that tug on my emotions, the ones that feel brave, and often with my taste that results in some pretty somber music. But Compliments Please is extremely brave for a whole host of reasons, but it isn't somber, not in its sound anyway. I think this is a really fun, energetic album. It's musically diverse, it touches on a host of genres, and it has absolutely incredible harmonies throughout. But for me, this album went from really good to be my album of the year when I saw Self-Esteem live. Watching them perform 3 times, in fact, this year, and seeing what these songs mean to Rebecca Taylor, the woman behind the band, seeing how much of herself she's put into them and how much fun she has performing them was an absolute joy. So the album takes on several extra levels once you see them live and once you know the stories behind it. So Rebecca was in a band called Slow Club for years, feeling creatively stifled in a sort of indie folk band and not able to put her touch on much of the music. And then she came out with this, and I just find it so powerful in so many ways. It touches on the freedom she's feeling creatively, but it's just a hugely powerful album with an amazing message. Whoa, that was like perfect timing.
Really?
But you were still talking.
I had like my last word as it went off, which is just
failure.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's all of our albums of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do we want to talk about first? Should we go back to clipping?
Sure. Let's
Yeah,
start with that. We'll
start
go with that
beginning.
again. So, what are your thoughts?
Matt,
Can
can you talk about clipping at this stage?
Is it not in one of the other categories?
I can talk about clipping.
Go for it.
I really enjoyed this album. I thought it was dark and sinister and kind of full of doom and haunting and kind of in a mechanical sense. The sounds that you talked about were, it was full of very interesting, like machinery almost. It sounded very mechanistic and industrial.
And we should mention that the album is based around horror movies as a concept through the whole album.
Okay.
Just to say, it fits with what you're saying, I think, Matt.
Yeah, and it felt very overbearing, and it does definitely capture a mood, which almost fit into my mood of 2019. But
What was that mood?
dark and depressing.
Okay.
Nice.
You always sound so happy.
Well, it was a good year and a bad year. Who knows?
Okay.
You have to see what I actually picked. But yeah, it actually, the one thing it did, it reminded me a lot of the music coming. You talked about how unique it is. It actually reminded me a lot of music coming from the Doomtree Collective.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like POS and Dessa.
Oh, okay.
I
That's news to
think
me.
a lot of their production is very similar to this, with this kind of harder edge rap, with more bare bones production, I'd say.
Some of it reminds me of Young Fathers as well, in parts.
I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, are you done, Matt?
Yep.
So, okay, I mean, I had mixed feelings on this album. I think it has some really, really strong moments. For me, particularly the songs Nothing Is Safe and Blood of the Fang.
Yeah.
They are 2 really strong tracks, and they show this group at the best. His flow is fantastic, particularly on those 2 tracks again. But then I did find it kind of one note at other times. He Dead and Club Down are 2 songs that I really picked out as ones that I found a bit basic, a bit boring.
Oh, Club Down.
Yeah,
What are you saying
yeah.
to me?
But you're
That's
going to
the
get
one
even
that
more.
I did the review on that one and referred to a load of lyrics from Club Down, which are
Okay.
possibly the strongest lyrics in the whole album. So,
Right.
which I'm happy to recite if you'd like, but I don't think it's going to
Go for it,
now.
Go for it.
You want me to?
Yeah, share it, man. I mean,
Okay, the
just
schoolyard
'cause
reeks of sewage, broken pipes, broken promises. A thin man staggers lucid for this time of night. Dying vomit dangles from the beard, sleep, mumbles, shuffle, trip. But the trajectory is clear. He's headed for the covered steps. Tut tut, it looks like rain. And he remembers A. Milne each time the sky is this kind of grey. Or that or his favourite film, Gene Kelly leaping technicolor through the fray and feeling glorious. The story is an allegory for his days. But night is coming now. Come on.
I'm not gonna
That's
argue
pretty
that there's some
fucking
good
neat.
lyrics, right? But it's for me, and you're gonna get even more angry in a second, I think, because on other occasions, and you just mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned both of these songs, but I'm gonna pick out the songs "Run for Your Life," "La Mala Ordina," and "The Show." When his flow is really, really good,
Yeah.
I found the beats extremely thin and quite uninteresting.
Malardina's beats. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Right. You're
So for
shocking.
me,
Shocking.
I felt like a lot of the album felt like a bit of a wasted opportunity. I thought a really talented MC, but a tendency to lean on basic beats. And in my opinion, some of the experimentation's not really that interesting. A lot of stuff felt a bit bolted on.
Wow.
But none of that to say I didn't like the album at all. I did like it. It just didn't blow me away. And I think there's really strong parts and then parts that for me didn't quite do
Did you?
as well.
I was expecting you to really enjoy it, Fran. Did you enjoy Piano Burning, the last song?
That is not even worth talking about, is it? That's
Which is the sound of a piano burning for 18
I
forgot
minutes
about
and 1
that.
second.
It's the absolute height of just let's just do this stupid thing and pretend that we're experimenting when actually we're just burning a piano. It just doesn't speak to me. No.
It sounds beautiful, that track. It's got some really beautiful moments.
Yeah, no.
It really
Say,
does. I'm
do-
not
do
even
you-
joking. There are parts of that song that I really like.
How many times do you listen to the whole thing?
I'm not going to listen to all of it all the time, but I'm just saying it's got some bits that are fun and cool.
Fair enough. Okay.
So there.
Yeah.
Well, there's where I landed on that.
Okay.
Nick, can you speak about Billie Eilish?
I can. So the first time I came into contact with Billie Eilish was on The Enemy, which basically ran her as a cover story every week for about 6 months before the album even came out. And it was just a total menswear situation. If either of you are old enough to know Menswear, the band that grew in the 90s.
I remember Menswear, but I don't know what the situation
The
is.
situation
I've heard
was
about
that
it.
Enemy
Heard
went
the story.
on and on about fucking menswear
Really?
every week
But
for
they weren't-
about a year, and they ended
were
up
very
going
average,
almost,
weren't they?
Exactly, they ended up going almost nowhere. So I was really, really frustrated with Billie Eilish before I'd heard any of the music, just thinking, oh, it's not a fucking menswear situation where Enemy's just gone off on one. I also saw her perform just on YouTube after she had done the Glastonbury set she did this year, doing Bad Guy. And that was the first song I'd ever heard. I never heard the album at that point. And I would say that in general, it was really pretty overblown. I felt like she was doing a lot of leaping around to a song that didn't really suit it, like trying to throw herself into it. So I was quite disappointed with that. That said, when I got into the album properly, I really quite liked it. It was actually... I thought it was really mature for somebody her age. As far as I know, she's pretty young, isn't she? She's like
Just turned 18. Just turned 18 a few weeks ago.
It's very mature then for somebody her age. There was some really interesting lyrics and stuff that were threaded through. I know she produced it with her brother, didn't she? I understand. Is that right?
Yeah.
So he did some really good work on it as well. But there was some lyrics that I loved, like there's this countdown sort of metaphor in "Wish You Were Gay," which I thought was really well done. Like, these 5 words are the words that I can't say to you, and these 6 things are that. It went up and down these numbers, that scales, which I thought was really cleverly done as a conceit. So that was really good. So in general, I thought it was really clever and really enjoyed it. I will say that I don't hear the Bon Iver so much as I potentially hear XX in it. And I don't think that's a good thing.
I haven't picked out either of those two things, and I'm still struggling to hear either of them, but I love both of them, so, you know.
Yeah. So I don't know. So XX stuff I was less interested in because I just felt like it's a little bit thin production-wise. But no, it was overall, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Okay,
Good.
Brilliant. Either of you want to speak about self-esteem?
Do you want to speak about Billie Eilish, Fran?
I can't speak about Billie Eilish right
you
now
can't
because it'll be
speak
one of
about-
my
you're trying
answers to
to-
one of my further questions.
You're trying to subtly gloss over it.
I was, but you pointed out, so.
Yeah. Well, we need to make it clear.
Oh, okay. Anyone? Self-esteem? Matt?
Self-esteem, yeah.
Yeah. I can talk self-esteem. I love this.
Oh.
It's a great album.
Did you know it already?
Nope.
No. Ah?
No. So I think it's pretty just straight up indie pop, and it's pretty forceful. I'd say though it's very like in your face, full of story. It's not crazy like complicated, so it's really like easy for like someone like me to really get on board with it.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
Well, I think it's like lyrically, it's super evocative, and it does. You don't need to sit down with a dictionary and think about this poetry. It's very straightforward and conjures up emotions without you even having to. It's a very just immediate.
Yeah, I agree.
and like every time I listen to it, I'd write in my notes, "Oh, this is now my favorite song." Then I switch, and now this is actually my favorite song.
Wow.
What did you settle on?
Wrestling.
Okay, cool.
And I think it has a really nice like 90s callback vibe to it, which I enjoyed a lot. It's a long album, but I think consistently good. And even though maybe like my only criticism would be that for this genre, maybe it doesn't do enough to make it stand out from the crowd, but at the same time, it's very, very, very good. So I
think if you saw the live show, I think that's where she does really stand out. But I think
yeah.
Don't know if they've been to America much yet, but yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Well, I think I already know what Nick will say about this album, but let's give him a chance to have a go.
Give me a chance to speak. Thanks so much. It's very kind of you. So I actually, in my typical way, forgot who had picked what of these 9 albums, of who had actually picked them as their favourite and stuff versus the ones that come up on publications. And then only when I saw you on Saturday, Fran, did I realise when you mentioned in passing that you would pick Self-Esteem.
Yeah.
And I will say that at that moment, I then felt like a sinking feeling of like, oh shit, because I'm going to have to really, really slay this album. Because
well, I've never expected you to like it, so it's okay.
Well, then I'm happy to fulfil the expectation. Yeah. So it was extremely grating, I found, almost all the way through, particularly the doubled vocals, which ran through everything, overly loud and just production-wise, very, very, like, gratingly forceful and in your face all the way through, which I found really difficult to get on with in loads of songs. From the start onwards, really, it was tons of that problem. So that's a production issue and not really a songwriting problem, I suppose you'd say. But a lot of it is the beats are pretty weak, which is funny you should say about clipping. But the beats are pretty weak. They sound really dated to me. And some of the songs, and I did actually write down wrestling, funnily enough, Matt, I found to be pretty kind of cheesy, but I think the worst one was She Reigns.
In the best way.
Cheesy in a good way, man.
She Reigns to be the worst one. That's an absolute cheese factory. Particularly at the end when it has this like 80s like Joe Satriani / Steve Vai type guitar solo all over it, which is just the most like cheesy thing I've ever heard in my life. It's unbelievable. So I found it pretty torturous, and it was close to being which album you're most surprised to see at the top of an album of the year list, but thankfully it dodged that bullet. But no,
I'm so happy right now.
I'm afraid it didn't work out for me at all.
This makes me so happy that I put you through that for
I know you did, you really did. But I will say that it must be a testament to our friendship that I was actually slightly concerned when I realised how bad I was going to slate it, and then realised it was
actually when I was deciding between a few albums, one of the things that pushed us over the edge was I can annoy Nick for a month as well. Can't quite decide between Big Thief and Self-Esteem, so I'll choose the one that will still annoy Nick for a month. So,
that's true. But the best is a good example of both the weak beats and the overly loud double vocals.
Oh, the best is just the best song on the album. So
well, maybe it's the best song on the album. That's possible. I'm willing to give you that.
I mean, I held back a bit on clipping.
Surprised you picked it, Fran.
Yeah.
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 Because it is sugar sweet pop, and that, like you said in your intro to it, that is not your wheelhouse normally.
No, definitely not.
But I'm glad you did.
Well, yeah, me too. Okay, cool, brilliant. Let's move on to the next question.
Yes.
So we're going to start with you, Matt, and the question is: which album felt the most relevant to 2019 to you? Go.
So the most 2019 album for me was 100 Gecs with 1,000 Gecs.
Okay.
And that's because it just was a mad album. And this has just been a mad year, just ups and downs and all sorts. And at times it felt like the cast of Looney Tunes had made an album. And they were almost like trolling the music itself. And it's surprisingly aggressive. Like when I first listened to it, the first song, and just seeing how it developed into just this kind of mess that was attacking me. It's so over the top. And they kind of, instead of just like turning up to max volume, they're like going up to double max volume on everything, every part. But that said, I found it really addictive, and I found it really stuck in my head, a lot of these songs, along with one other artist, which we haven't talked about yet.
Okay.
These were the two artists I had stuck in my head all the time. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know if there's something wrong with me. But I actually kind of like this. And I think I kind of liked it quite a lot.
Is that where you're finishing?
Yeah, that's where I'm finishing.
Still haven't got to use my alarm.
No,
Okay.
no alarm for you.
Fair enough. Right. Okay. So I'm going to answer this question next. So whoever's timing me,
It's Matt.
please get on with it.
Go.
So for me, I had to reach slightly to answer this question as I found it harder than I have in other years. I think that was partly none of the albums felt as political as some of the ones in other Album of the Year episodes. None of them felt like they really grabbed something about the year for me. So the album I'd pick as most relevant would be Ariana Grande's Thank You Next, but that's relevant to me personally in some ways, and I think there's a couple of reasons for this. The main one, I think, is that I started working for a young person's mental health charity this year, and a lot of the things that Ariana sings about on the album seem to reflect a lot of the things that young people seem to be struggling with a bit in society. I can't speak. I think songs like Fake Smile and Ghosting are the best examples of what I'm talking about. Particularly Fake Smile and its discussion of how like social media means that you're always having to put on emotions that aren't really there rather than being yourself. And I think for me, these are some things that I might have found slightly trivial in this kind of music in the past, but now I can sort of see the effect they're having on young people through the work I do. And I also wonder if that's why in 2019 I've started to enjoy pop music a bit more myself. I think I've started to understand it a bit more, and I think that's why I chose this as my most 2019 album, because I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. I think 2019 might be the year I stopped being a snob about pop music. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a few songs that I really didn't like on this album, but songs like those I've already mentioned were really good. And I think Bad Ideas are total bang. Oh, I didn't hear that.
You're over.
Your alarm is not loud enough.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, Bad Ideas.
Just scream down the mic at him.
Yeah,
Yeah, scream
I'm just
next
going to say
time.
alarm.
Scream next time. So yeah, that's me. Nick, give me a second to get my alarm ready.
Okay.
One that actually makes a sound.
Okay.
Unlike Matt's, and you can start now. Which was the most relevant to 2019?
I'm going to go with, and it is a stretch. I think this category is a stretch for me as well, for the reasons you gave. And unfortunately, I'm going to go with Ariana Grande as well.
Okay.
And I will say also similarly that I didn't hate this album as much as I feared I would. I really was nervous that we were going to have to listen to something absolutely unbearable for the whole month. And then there was self-esteem, I suppose. We didn't have to do that.
You tried to pick Taylor Swift, so.
But yeah, so I thought it was. I thought it had a lot of topics that seem to come across in a lot of pop music that you hear here and there that just seemed a bit like tired, and I say tired, a bit cliched. But I thought that was very much what it feels to me like a lot of music is about at the moment anyway. So in that sense, although I'm not saying I like the album particularly, but I think it was quite 2019 in a way.
Okay.
And also I thought, there was still stuff that was really grating, even though I didn't hate it. For example, the whistle octave stuff she does, which she does in Imagine, is hellish, and just reminds me of the Mariah Carey nightmare that I've lived in the past. So of hearing that song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, with her whistling all over it, octave stuff. Anyway, so it was that was pretty annoying, but overall I felt like it was okay, and it was very much what I would expect somebody who's in pop music to do at the moment.
My alarm has been used, and I don't know how to stop it. No, I do. Okay, brilliant. So that's 2 Ariana Grandes and 100 Gecs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you talk about Ariana Grande, Matthew?
We'll start off with that. I think I can reiterate some of the things you guys said. I thought there were some great songs, some lyrical depths I wasn't quite expecting. She's like a headline pop artist, and so there comes a certain judgment with that. But I think personally I've liked pop music for a while, and going on from your point, Fran, it might not just be that you can understand it better. I think pop is really getting better, just getting better in general.
Maybe that's part of it. Yeah.
I think the people are putting way more authenticity into it as opposed to, hey, let's just have like a catchy chorus.
I can see that. It did sound like, sorry to interrupt, it did sound like that. I don't know if this is true, but it sounded like the songs were written by her and not by like a 50-year-old music producer who just asked her to sing it afterwards.
Yeah,
which made it feel a bit more real in that sense.
I think she has co-writing credit on all the songs because
and I think to go to that point as well. I think when I think back to the pop music when I was growing up, things like Brittany, and she was singing about things that didn't mean anything really, like Toxic and songs like that, which just the lyrics were just words sort of glued together, weren't they?
So I think maybe innuendo really was most of those songs. Really.
Yeah. So maybe you got something there, Matt.
But the only thing I'd add is specifically about the title song, Thank You Next. I think I haven't heard really a song touch on those specific kind of feelings in such a way before. And I thought it was incredibly healthy and honest portrayal of relationships and how they grow, develop, and come to an end. And considering how public her love life, I don't know how big you've seen it, but it's been very public over here, how like her exes one of them died, one of them was on SNL and she almost got married to him. And so it was all very, very public, but then to come out with a song like that and to actually, put some of that to rest in a very like truthful, but like productive way. I was super impressed.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Nick, 100 Gecs, Nick? Or
I'll talk about that later.
Yes, so will I. Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is, I'm going to go first here. So what was your best new discovery? So Matt, tell me when you're ready for me to go.
Okay, go.
So, I'd listened to the Billie Eilish album once before, but I'm picking it as my favourite new discovery because my feelings about it now are wildly different from they were after that previous listen. So for me, this was by far the most exciting album on this list. It was the one I wanted to get to every time I listened to the playlist, and it was the one I listened to the most by far. I think she's just doing something so different to other people out there at the minute. Songs like Bad Guy, You Should See Me in a Crown, All the Good Girls Go to Hell, and My Strange Addiction are just really exciting. I think they're pop, but they're stretching the genre and bringing elements of other music. I hadn't thought of the XX or Bon Iver like you guys just mentioned, but she's doing some really interesting things that I find difficult to define in genre in some ways. And yet, someone at the age of 17 can release an album like this is incredibly impressive. I did want to point out that it's a bit weird that Matt's chosen 17-year-old Girls as his album of the year 2 years in a row.
Picked last year. Remind me who you picked last year.
Well, this one is vastly superior to Let's Eat Grandma from last year.
Oh, yeah.
Vastly superior to that album.
I agree with that, yeah.
I want to say I just think it's also really refreshing to see a star such as this actually deserving the hype she's receiving and me understanding that hype for once. I just think it's a really exciting album. And definitely my best discovery on the list. Done.
Good job.
Nice.
Nicholas, in 1 second, Nicholas. You go, Nick.
Okay, so my pick for favourite new discovery was W.H. Lung. I had heard about it a little bit beforehand, but not heard it. And when I first got through the first time, I was really quite disappointed and felt like it sounded like it had no teeth, like it was kind of like quite weedy and sort of weak vocally in particular. And I found that kind of irritating. But over time, it really, really warmed to it, and I ended up really liking its kind of smoothness. It's kind of like a mellow version of more recent horrors stuff, and I'm really big fan of horrors. So it's not got quite that gothic tinge, but I still think it has some really kind of nice builds and nice sonic kind of palette that I really quite found really compelling all the way through. So yeah, I think Bring It Up is probably the best example of the horrors reference I was talking about, by the way. But overall, yeah, I think it was something that I'll come back to many, many times in the future, I'm sure. And it's also the first time Piggly Records have picked something for their top list that I didn't hate in the last few years. So I'm very pleased about that as well. Okay.
Cool.
Nice. Okay, Matt, same question to you. What was your favourite discovery from the list? Go.
Mine was Brittany Howard's Jamie.
Gem.
I had Jamie.
Carry on.
I'd never really been into Alabama Shakes before, so I kind of ignored this album, even though a lot of people have recommended it to me. But actually sitting down and focusing on it, it's different to her like previous stuff with her band, and it's actually way more interesting. There's this really great mix of like funk and soul songs. I think the album has a really great balance throughout, and then the content of the songs are so personal and so important. I think each tell a story incredibly effectively. This I feel like is the only album on this list that would now be in my top 10 of the year, apart from Billie Eilish. And it definitely pushed itself in there because it's just, I think, irresistible. For me, the best track on there is Goat Head. The way she describes the intricacies of being biracial and the pressure from both sides of her heritage. And it's both raw and sensitive, but also defiant. It's pretty sensational.
Do you know what I mean? You're making a really good point there, so I think I'll allow you to finish that point if you would like.
I'll just say it is sensational. That's
okay.
That's it.
Okay.
One word.
Okay, so that means we've already spoken about Billie Eilish. Do we want to go on to? Should we go Brittany Howard? Carry on where we were?
Yeah,
sure.
Do you want me to jump in? I'll jump in here.
Yeah, go for it.
Do it.
Okay, so on the surface, I should really love this album, and I was really excited when I first read about it. I think an album that looks at the links between today's political climate and that of the past, looks at racism and homophobia, and does it all in kind of an experimental and exciting way. I mean, it really should be my kind of thing, and I should love it. And I do love parts of it. Matt's just mentioned Goat Head. It's amazing, an amazing song. I put out the lyrics, my mama was brave to take me outside because mama is white and daddy is black. When I first got made, I guess I made these folks mad. I think she starts the song with that, and I think it's amazing, really powerful. I'm a big fan of the song He Loves Me. I think a song that, is affirming her God still loves her despite her sexuality, her drinking, and loads of other sins that she mentions. Again, it's really powerful. I really like those two songs, and there are a few others that I like, even if I don't love. She's really soulful, her voice is really powerful. But there are a few songs that just don't do that much for me. I think 13th Century Metal is a bit of a mess.
It's great.
No, it's a mess.
It's great.
I think Presence feels a bit over the top, and I think Baby just feels a bit nothingy. So in the end, it wasn't personally quite as good as I hoped it was going to be, and as good as I kind of thought it was on my first couple of listens. I admire it, and I get why others admire it, but I don't think it's that likely that I'll listen to it again, even though I do admire it. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag for me. What about you, Nick?
Okay, so it's interesting. I think the use of the word mess is quite interesting when you said it. Which song were you talking about again? 13th Century Metal.
13th Century Metal, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't specifically apply it to that song per se, but I think I'm thinking about what that word really means. And to me, the issue with this album is that it's very much a loose kind of jam, and and there's a lot of sort of flowing, sort of moves in and out of structures and kind of like wanders around a lot. And to me, that might be another way of saying it's a mess. So for me, a lot of the, if Ghost
I just said it in less words.
From the start, yeah, exactly. So from the start, the history repeats. I felt like it really was. I know that's an opener, of course, but I feel like that was really like a good sort of jam track, a song where they were pulling things together as they were recording it, and they hadn't finalised things. And when I think of a jam, and a lot of people, of course, justifiably like jams in music, that's fine. That's not really my thing at all. When I think of a jam, I just think of the Spin Doctors. Does anyone know who that is? Or am I too old?
A little bit, but not
too
a
old.
lot.
All right. Well, anyone who knows Spin Doctors will understand what I mean. I think they're a jam band that became like an indie sensation in the 90s, and I feel like it just gives the impression that the content, although I understand the profundity of it, the content is actually playing sort of second fiddle to a lot of just. This is going to sound harsher than it means to. A lot of kind of whoops and kind of flourishes, vocal and instrumental. They're not really that effective as songwriting elements. So there were songs I really liked, like Short and Sweet, I thought was really very beautiful, and her vocals are undoubtedly really remarkable. She's got quite a talent, but I just found it both lyrically and musically quite wandering. There are lots of another example is Stay High, which is has all these kind of drifting elements of lyrics that I just felt like were just put in so she could do more of her beautiful vocals. So that's a pity, I feel like. So yeah, I didn't really love it in the end, as you can tell.
Yeah, I think I liked it a little bit more than you, but I think a lot of what you said there just makes sense to me. I think it's that sort of looseness all the way through that never really ties it fully together, and then that's why I think there's real standout moments, but yeah, a little bit all over the place.
It feels unfinished almost. That's the word for it, but it feels like a load of interesting demos. Well recorded, interesting demos.
Wow.
I think me and Nick just agreed on something.
You guys are wrong.
Yeah. We agreed on Ariana Grande as well.
You agreed, but you were wrong. So, does it count?
I think it does. I think it's 2 votes against 1.
Yeah, it counts. I mean, this I like it more than you, Nick. I would say, because I don't think it's. But I still, I'm not going to totally vote against it. But yeah, okay. Matt, do you want to talk about W.H. Long incidental music or?
No.
No. Okay, I will.
Oh no.
Talk about. So I think we all know what's coming in the last
so
questions.
Sad. I'm so disappointed. Okay.
Okay, so W.H. Long for me, it took me by surprise. Actually, there were a lot of factors that made me think I wouldn't like it. One of them Nick's mentioned was that Piccadilly Records had chosen it as the number one.
You are, by the way, an excellent record shop.
Excellent record shop.
And I love it.
And usually their top 10 records of the year are brilliant, apart from the number one, which they just always seem to give to someone who they know. And I think they might know W.H. Long because they are from Manchester, but still.
They are from Manchester, yeah.
But yeah, the album was also reviewed on our website by James, and he didn't hate it, but he kind of seemed to see it as derivative of a lot of other artists, mainly from the 80s, and I can kind of see that. There's a really familiar sound with this band, and there are times when it makes me think of The Cure, times when it reminds me of Talking Heads. And there's even a couple of occasions where it reminds me of a more recent band in Wild Beasts. But actually, I see these all as influences rather than the band being derivative. I think they have their own sound. I think it's exciting. I think it's fun. I was rarely concentrating on the lyrics, but when I did, I think they showed some potential. But what was really interesting to me is how they made some really quite long songs. They interesting and intriguing. For me, often when we listen to bands with really long songs, Swans, people like that, it's stuff that I struggle a little bit with. But I think songs like Nothing Is and Simpatico People, they really keep up the energy and make enough changes for it to be really worth listening to. I think it's almost like a wall of sound at times, but I think it really works. And yeah, this is a debut though, and there are parts where it doesn't work as well, but overall this was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Do you see the Horrors references at all, or are you that familiar with the Horrors?
I'm not that familiar with Horrors.
Okay.
The only time, I keep meaning to listen to them, but you played them to me a few times and I like the sound of the Horrors, but
maybe I'll do them for a while, love at some point.
Yeah, that'd be really good. I don't know them well enough really to comment. I think Matt knows them quite well.
I do.
Yeah. And I think he might disagree with you, but let's move on. Okay, so loads of surprises I'm sure coming up, right. But we're going to go to which album we were the most surprised to see on an end of year list, and we're going to start with Matt, but Matt needs to give me just a couple of seconds to find where our time is going. Okay, Matt, which album were you most surprised to see at the top of an album of the year list? Go.
I was most surprised to see W.H. Long.
Really?
Come on.
Big surprise. And so I actually picked this because they weren't just picked by Piccadilly Records, they were picked by Resident Records, who are a record shop in Brighton, which I used to go to. And normally I trust their picks. And I'd say I did like this album. I thought it was good. I had a kind of a little bit of a holy fuck vibe around them.
Okay.
They had this kind of the deep floating kind of processional beats that seems to be a cornerstone of this style of music. It is there and it works well for like this kind of it's almost chanting style of music. It feels almost religious but electronic. I don't know, but I just felt like it was very not special. It felt very similar to a lot of other music I've heard before. It just has a bit of kind of that krautrock synth pop vibe to it, and it was good, but it wasn't exceptional at it. And it's weird to have an album of that type be, I guess, out now. and just to do just an okay job and not modernize it in any way, I don't think. I do like some of the tracks, but I think, yeah.
You don't get to tell us about those ones.
Yeah, we're not interested. Forget it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go next.
Because you're wrong as well, so. Okay.
It's also nothing like the horrors.
Oh, come on.
Nothing like that.
It's like the recent stuff. It's like not 5, the album before that.
Anyway, you can have this argument later.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Okay, I'm going to go next. So are you ready for me, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, shall I start?
Yeah. Go.
Okay.
Go.
So this
slow.
was the easiest question to answer, and it won't take me very long. By far, the most surprising list topper for me was 1,000 Gecs by 100 Gecs. The album didn't seem to be able to decide what type of music it wanted to be a terrible version of. At times, it was really bad pop music. At times, it was really bad dubstep. Then it was bad jazz. Then it was bad hip hop. There's even a few seconds in one of the songs where it manages to be bad metal. It's a total fucking mess. The first time I listened to it, I had to give the headphones to my girlfriend Kirsten for a few seconds to check it was really happening and that I wasn't dying. The song title, I Need Help Immediately, pretty much sums up how I felt while listening to this total mess. But the song also is a perfect example of how irritating they are. That song's then followed by a song that generally has the refrain, "Stupid horse, I just fell out of the Porsche." I mean, what the fuck is that about? And to top it all off, we often make jokes on this podcast about music sounding like ringtones. And I was going to make that joke again, but I don't need to because they actually made a song called Ringtone and purposely tried to make it sound like a ringtone. Is that your alarm? It was one of the worst. I don't know what that was, but this was one of the worst albums I ever heard in 2019, and that sound was better than it. So yeah.
Okay.
You done?
I'm done.
You have 2 seconds left.
Terrible album. That's my 2 seconds.
Right.
Okay, Nick, are you ready? You can go.
So most surprised to see at the top of the album of the year list was 100 Gecs with 1,000 Gecs, which is first of all incredibly irritating vocoder city. Just obsessed with the fucking vocoder, which everybody knows on this who listens to this podcast I cannot stand from day one. And in the first 10 seconds you get that, and all the way through the fucking album you get that, because none of them can sing, of course. The album sounds like an extremely, and this is unfair on the band I'm going to reference, an extremely shit version of Sleigh Bells, which is desperately trying to sound like it's cool and fun, but actually is just idiotic. And I also put down simply, "Stupid horse, spare me from this song."
Oh my god, that song's the worst.
Yeah, Stupid Horse is absolutely off the fucking charts as a terrible piece of non-music. And also, I'll point out, this album is 23 minutes long, which obviously I'm pleased about in the sense that it spared me from any more. But, I mean, what a lazy fucking album this is. What a lazy non-attempt to do anything decent with music this is. Thank you.
Okay, you've just totally blown my mind that it's only 23 minutes long because it felt a lot longer than that every time I had to listen to it.
I just looked it up and it's 23 minutes in 10 songs.
Oh man, it was torturous.
They've only got one song that's over 3 minutes.
I didn't realise quite how short it was. It definitely didn't feel like that.
It felt like weeks. Every time I listen to it, it's torture. I can't understand it. I don't understand anything about it.
Is it I Fell Off the Stupid Horse?
Stupid horse, I just fell out of a Porsche.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
That's amazing.
See, that's the one that would get stuck in my head, and I didn't know why.
Yes, but you know when you were saying that, it wasn't getting stuck in your head because you liked it, Matt. It wasn't. I promise you. It was getting stuck in your head because it's ridiculously irritating. The same as I used to walk around with, if you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it in my head permanently. I don't believe in marriage, so it wasn't about that. And at the time, I hated Beyonce. It's just irritating. So sometimes, stuff that gets stuck in your head doesn't mean it's in any way good music. It's not good music.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone's into Sleigh Bells. Are they, either of you?
Yeah, I wrote down.
Do you see the similarity in terms of this being a terrible, terrible version of that?
I also wrote down a shit Sleigh Bells.
Oh, really?
in my notes.
Which question did you pick this for? The most 2019, Matt, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose 2019 was a shit show, so I can see where you're coming from.
It's just mad, and it does feel like some teens trolling me.
Yeah.
It's not even like
And it's one of
it's
those
not
like
mad.
we're
It's
too old. Like it's one of those like we just don't get it, man, because we're too fucking old to understand how cool this music is.
but they're
Just
not
fuck
young
that
people.
shit.
They're not young
Fuck
people
that
who are
shit.
making it. It's
Are they not? They give the
no.
impression of being about 12.
The people on the cover of the album, anyway, unless they were pictures of their grandparents, I don't know. They didn't look that old. But yeah, atrocious.
Well, aren't they just facing into a bush? How do you
Yeah, I'm
do you
looking
know?
at the cover right now. You can't really tell.
Maybe I saw a picture somewhere else. Hasn't it got like long grey hair on the cover though?
Hold on a minute. Now I'm
They
interested in
both
looking.
they both have blonde hair.
Not grey.
Oh no, they are quite young. He's got long hair, but they are quite young.
They were holding
the
Zimmer
point
frames.
stands. The point stands that I think their response to this would be, "You're just not cool enough to understand us because we're so young and you're so old," and that's just fucking bullshit.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine if they want to have that feeling. That's fine because you know, a stupid horse. I just fell out of the Porsche.
Especially in the context that Billie Eilish released an album this year, which is really good.
Yeah,
this just shows what it is. Just throw the towel in musically.
Yeah, but who chose it as their number one? Was it the New York Times?
It was one of the New York Times writers. They had all of their writers come up with separate.
He needs to get
number ones.
sacked. He needs to get sacked tomorrow.
One of the writers did that one.
He needs a new job. Okay.
Cool.
We have two albums that didn't come up, which okay, so we'll go in order and we'll talk about Weyes Blood, Titanic Rising first, which was chosen by Flood Magazine and a few others.
Yes.
Who wants to start us off?
I'll go with that. That's fine.
Okay.
So for Weyes Blood, it was also recommended to me by Tom, who's been on the podcast
Yeah.
before.
It
was, yeah.
It's one of his albums of the year. So when he was on a couple of sessions ago, I thought that this was ultimately just okay, and that's why I didn't make any of the four questions we had before. I think the biggest problem I had with it was that although it was well executed, it never really surpassed the Carpenters, which I think is an homage to. It just sounds very much like it wants to be the Carpenters as a kind of smooth, very beautiful chamber pop kind of experiment. And I like the singing through it. I like the vocals through it, but usually very beautiful. But it never really grabbed me, unfortunately. It wasn't really, didn't have enough sort of grit to actually get under my skin, as it were. So Movies was my favourite track on it. And because of the string sections in it, I thought were a bit more quick and energetic and unusual. But generally, I thought it was a bit too smooth to actually grab me, and therefore a bit disappointing.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, I have similar kind of feelings. I think the way everything built together, the musically, with her voice, it just felt like this big warm blanket that just got chucked over me. And sometimes that was very smothering and obscured everything about what was actually going on. I felt like some of it was just a bit too much like Father John Misty, which we talked about recently.
Okay.
Just kind of a very kind of classical song structure with some piano and some singing, and just generally that's not my jam. But other times it worked, and so the like kind of space beachy vibes of Andromeda are really, really cool. I just don't think those highlights were particularly common, so it was pretty uneven.
Okay.
So I just meh. I was expecting a lot more.
Yeah.
I was as well.
Okay. Well, you know those films when they want you to think it's the 1920s, so they put a woman in a ball gown and make her sing really boring songs in a bar while everyone pretends she's amazing? That was Weyes Blood for me. I strongly dislike this album.
Right.
It's incredibly one note. It's so samey all the way through. I have a really difficult time distinguishing the songs, and they've all got that same whiny, dramatic feeling. Titanic Rising was, it kind of made me think that this would have worked on the movie Titanic. These were the kind of songs that would have been sung in that bar, and actually they were about as enjoyable as the Celine Dion nonsense from that film. I'm at a total and utter loss for why this album's received the buzz that it has. I don't even actually like her voice. Her voice is really annoying. So I thought it was terrible. Yeah, really bad.
What about
Not
Andromeda?
as bad as 100 Gecs though, eh?
It wasn't as bad as 100 Gecs, but it would have been my next choice for the one I was most surprised to find. It was after that, it was the worst album on here. Andromeda, I don't know, Matt, because every song sounded exactly the same. Yeah, it was torturous again. 2 really torturous albums on this list. Yeah, sorry Tom, if you're listening, but
Yeah.
get better taste.
He's crying into his beer when he listens to this. Yeah. Sorry, Tom.
Serves him right.
Yeah, okay, so we have one left, which is Ari Lennox, Shea Butter Baby, which was chosen by Associated Press, and I'll kick us off on this.
Go for it.
So it's a difficult one for me in a way. Like, I generally like the sounds of the album. Her voice is quite nice. The songs sound pleasant and enjoyable enough, but I think the content's incredibly banal, really. I think the songs about getting a new apartment and the stuff about FaceTime is just so empty sounding that I actually thought I must be missing something, so I went and did some research. I was kind of expecting to find a story. I don't do it as much anymore, but I was half expected to find a story about Annie Lennox talking about how she used to be homeless and that this album was about celebrating that she now had a house and that her life had turned around. And I thought there's going to be some really good backstory that explained why this album would be at the top of anyone's album of the year list, but there wasn't. There was no backstory. So it's a strange one for me. I mean, I didn't hate it. I kind of enjoyed listening to it if I ignored what she was saying. But for me, it was far too bland to be in a conversation about the best albums of 2019. By far. I mean, what a year of music it was, and this and Weyes Blood and 100 Gecs are involved in the conversation.
Self-esteem.
Shut up.
Yeah.
We'll get to what we all think about the playlist shortly. But who wants to go next on Ari Lennox?
I'll go again on this, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so it's so funny to say about the new apartment thing. I also concluded, and couldn't be bothered doing the research because I'm so lazy, that there was some incredibly profound backstory to the new apartment. But as it is, she just got a new house, which is very nice.
Yeah, she's got a new house and she cleaned the floors.
She got it from the royalties for releasing this album. You never know. But if she did, I'm a little bit disappointed. Honestly, I thought there was something more to it going on.
No.
I thought that I'm going to say something. Fran's just going to reach down the fucking phone now and punch me. But I thought vocally it sounded a little bit like Lauryn Hill sometimes.
Have you ever heard Lauryn Hill?
I have actually, yes.
Yeah.
That's because she just wants to be Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's to that quality at all, but I did notice a little bit of a sort of lyrical similarity in some points. Particularly on Broke, as I say, on this, which I think is the second or third track, isn't it? I thought there was some really addictive parts of some of the songs, like some of the guitar work on Shea Butter Baby, which is, okay, but didn't really grab me hugely, but I thought was all right. But generally, I would say I found it very dated and found it very average, which is like what Fran was saying, I guess. It just seemed very okay, like nothing to move me, and certainly, again, like Fran said, the idea that this could be somebody's best album of the entire year blows my mind, honestly. Yeah.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Matt?
I can carry on more of the same. It's
we were agreeing too much.
It's a very conservative album, considering that the genre. There's exciting things happening in the neo soul R&B genre with exciting artists, and this just feels not revolutionary, not a step forward. It feels very safe.
Yeah.
It's not revitalizing the style at all in any way. It's very nice music. I would happily, if I had friends over, put this on and put it in the background to create a mood. But
what kind of mood are you trying to create?
Just a very nice warm evening in with friends.
On the spot.
Okay. Yeah, tell me more about this mood, Matt, because I'm intrigued by what mood you're trying to create with this.
Yeah, and so I think you're more excited about the mood and the evening than actually listening to what is in this album.
Yeah. This mood sounds deep. Good, but yeah.
It's not deep. It was, considering all that's going on, it's not pushing the boundaries forward.
No.
I'm happy she got a new apartment though. I mean, that's great.
Congrats for everyone.
Well done.
I wish she'd been homeless first though.
Wow.
Like I thought, so I could understand. No, not for that, but just so it would mean something to me. So I could understand why this song exists, because
you can just pretend that she was.
I just got a new apartment. I am going to clean the floors. Is pretty much what she says on the song over and over again. I'm just like, what is happening?
That is true.
What is happening?
Yeah, pretty sad.
Everyone's gonna have goals.
Crazy Horse, I just fell out of the Porsche, and that together in the same playlist.
Okay.
Okay, right. I'm trying to. Are we done?
We are.
We're done.
Right. I'm trying to make a
what do we
decision
think?
here whether we talk about the playlist or whether we do our top threes and actually declare our album, because I think it could be quite interesting to know what our album of the year is before we go on to talk about the playlist. What do you think? Are you happy with that?
Well, we could give you the top
Sure.
threes and then you can do the math.
Yeah,
while
give
we,
me your top threes.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
shall I go first?
Reverse order.
Yeah.
So in third place for me from this list was W.H. Long with Incidental Music. In second place, Billie Eilish, long title, not going to say it because I can't remember it. Number one, obviously Self-Esteem, Compliments Please. So yeah, that was my top three.
Yeah.
Matt?
I will. Okay, go.
Oh, Nick.
Go for it, Nick. Jump
I will
in.
go with third place, Billie Eilish, with a very long title I can't be asked reading either. Second place, W.H. Long. And number one is Clipping.
Okay, give me a minute, Matt, before you... I'll just make noises until... Yeah, now you can
just
speak.
keep talking.
You can speak.
In third place, narrowly beating out 100 Gecs.
Come on.
Self-Esteem.
Self-Esteem.
Second place is Brittany Howard. And first place is Billie Eilish with When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?
So I think... Can you say that title again, please?
When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?
Okay, so what that tells me is that...
We haven't talked about the list yet. We're going to talk about the list in general before you announce the big announcement.
If you want, I mean, it's it's pretty obvious. Okay,
Build up the tension.
All right, let's do that. So one of you start. What did you think of the list, Nick?
I thought the list was generally pretty poor. I don't know if I'm as a collection of albums there was some good stuff and some weaker stuff, but if you look at this, it's meant to be the picks of people who are really into music about the best stuff that they've heard in an entire 12-month period. Really, I picked those three. There were only those three I picked that I would bother with, honestly. I don't think I'd go back to any of the others. So, and some of them, obviously, I outright hated. So that's kind of a sad situation to be in, I feel like. I was quite disappointed. Certainly, if I was to pick like a top, 5 albums of the year from selections of stuff I've heard over the year, this list would be very different.
Yeah. Matt?
I was also disappointed. I think a lot of the albums were of a genre without pushing that genre forward. I thought that a lot of them were pretty safe. I don't know if it's a symptom of the fact that we just did an album of the decade playlist and listened to a lot of really great music, or the fact that we've listened to a lot of the best music already. And so haven't picked those.
Yeah, because I suppose if we hadn't listened to Between Us, because just so the listeners know, all of the albums that are off from other places, we didn't know them at all. So I suppose if we'd known, not known albums like Lizzo and albums like Lana Del Rey and albums like Fontaine's that have been winning loads of lists, they might have been here. That would have improved the list, I suppose.
I can see that.
But that said, why are people picking these?
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolutely atrocious list. I don't think it was about the album of the decade thing, because we've done this album of the year 3 times now, and we've had really good albums. I've gone away with albums that I've bought and I've owned and I've carried on to listen to and I've really fallen in love with. Whereas with this, my third place, W.H. Long, I probably won't listen to again. So out of a list of 9, I might listen to W.H. Long again one day, but out of a list of 9, my third favourite is one that I probably won't listen to again, which I think just kind of sums up what a poor list it was.
Yeah.
So
we apologise to all those people who followed along listening to this list. Yeah, so
it's a bit sad.
Sorry.
But while we're here, let's just say 2019, right, was such a good year for music.
Fucking hell, it was amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So many good albums.
My top 10 is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled. Like, there's so many albums I loved this year, and that's why this made me a bit sad. But never mind. Okay, should we move on to the big reveal of this wonderful list of albums?
Yes.
So our third favourite album, I'm going to say from this list, not of 2019, is W.H. Long.
Okay.
Oh.
Second place.
He's like pained. He's literally pained.
W.H. Long's Incidental Music. Second place, Self-Esteem with Compliments Please. And in first place, Billie Eilish with When We All Sleep, Where Do We Go. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we are.
That 1975 album title. No, that's Why I Watch You When You Sleep.
That's I Watch You When You Sleep and Then I Creep on You or something like that.
Yeah, Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
Billie
so
Eilish,
that means-
Billie Eilish is our album of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that.
I'm very happy with that.
think
Means I
that's-
won.
It does. It
Fran,
means
you're
Matt won.
second.
You just gave Matt the award, Fran.
I'm a
Nick,
you know.
Nick isn't even ranked.
I'm not on there at all.
No, he isn't.
Well,
He
you're just
failed.
closed-minded fools, aren't you, in the end? What can I say?
Yeah.
I mean, on a list of albums that I didn't really like, Clipping managed 6th place, I think. Ariana Grande beat it.
I know you're not really
Clippings.
into words, are you, Fran? That's the problem, isn't
Yeah, the English lip guy.
it? Yeah, exactly. He doesn't really care about that stuff.
Right, okay, so that's our albums of 2019 episode. Are we going to move on to talk about next time?
We are, yes.
Yeah.
So we previously advertised the list of albums that we're about to advertise again as being our next episode, and then we decided we should move the albums of the year forward, so we'll tell you them again. I am going to be picking 2 recent releases, which are Sampa the Great's The Return and When I Say to You Black Lightning by Common Holly.
And I have picked 2 recent releases as well. Chelsea Wolf's Birth of Violence and Liturgy's HAJJ.
And I'm going to be hosting, so I'll be picking the classic, which will be Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap. And then I'll be introducing these guys to Metronomy with a playlist.
Okay.
Nice.
Right, guys. Well, thank you both for putting up with that playlist for a month. Well done.
Yeah,
Props to
we
you
did
all.
it.
We pulled it
It's
off.
over.
Unbelievable.
It's over. Thank you, listeners, for listening, and please go and check us out at pickybees.com. Follow us on Twitter at pickybastards. Am I missing anything?
Facebook.
Facebook at the Picky Bastards, and yeah, come and find us.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. See ya.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.